The massive space station, called Nexus Prime, floated in the darkness between stars. It was bigger than most moons, and filled with the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Every 100 years, they gathered here for the Centennial Summit. Today, representatives from 1,000 worlds walked through halls that gleamed like jewels. Captain Marcus Chen stood near a window, watching ships arrive. Each vessel was more impressive than the last. Some looked like floating cities made of crystal. Others appeared to be living creatures with metal skin. His own ship, the small Earth vessel Persistence, looked like a toy next to them. Marcus wore his best uniform, but he felt out of place. The other delegates towered over him or glided past on anti-gravity platforms. Some had 4 arms. Others had skin that changed colors. A few didn't even have solid bodies. He was the only human here. "Captain Chen," a voice said behind him. Marcus turned to see Ambassador Thrix, a being that looked like a walking tree with golden bark. Thrix had been kind to him since his arrival. "The main ceremony is about to begin," Thrix said. "You should join us in the Great Hall." Marcus nodded and followed the ambassador through corridors wide enough for starships. The walls showed moving pictures of great battles and peace treaties from across the galaxy. Earth appeared in none of them. Humanity was too new, too small to matter. The Great Hall was enormous. Thousands of delegates filled floating seats arranged in perfect circles. At the center stood a platform made of some material that seemed to bend light around it. Marcus found his assigned seat in the outermost ring, where the least important delegates sat. "Look there," whispered Delegate Corv, a blue-skinned humanoid sitting nearby. "The Empress arrives." Every being in the hall turned to watch. She entered through the main doors, and Marcus understood immediately why the room had fallen silent. Vex Hara, Empress of the Zephyrian Empire, moved like living starlight. Her body appeared to be made of crystal, but it flowed like water. Patterns of light ran through her transparent skin, creating colors that had no names. She was beautiful in a way that made other beings look crude and unfinished. The Zephyrians ruled 17 star systems through pure intelligence. They could solve mathematical problems that would take human computers years to finish. Their minds worked so fast that they had to slow down their thoughts to speak with other species. Vex Hara took her place on the central platform. When she spoke, her voice carried clearly to every corner of the massive hall. "Noble delegates," she said, "we gather as always to discuss trade, borders, and treaties. But today, I wish to make an announcement that concerns my personal future and the future of my empire." The hall grew even quieter. Marcus could hear his own heartbeat. "For too long, I have ruled alone," the Empress continued. "My advisors tell me I should choose a mate from among the great houses of Zephyr. But I grow tired of my own kind. Their thoughts run in the same patterns as mine. I seek something different." She paused and looked around the hall. Her gaze seemed to touch each delegate. "Therefore, I make this offer to all assembled here. Any being who can defeat my champion in single combat may claim me as bondmate. Through this union, they would gain alliance with the Zephyrian Empire and access to all our resources and knowledge." The silence that followed was complete. Then, nervous laughter began to ripple through the crowd. Surely this was some kind of joke. "Behold my champion," Vex Hara said. A section of the floor opened, and something rose from below. Marcus felt his stomach drop as he saw what emerged. Korthak the Rendered stood 12 feet tall on legs like tree trunks. His 4 arms ended in hands that could crush steel. His hide was thick and scarred, colored deep red with black markings. Bioengineered by the Void clans to be the perfect warrior, he had never lost a fight in 3 centuries. The creature's head turned slowly as he examined the crowd. When his eyes found Marcus, they stopped for a moment. Those eyes held no emotion, only the promise of death. "The rules are simple," Vex Hara announced. "Single combat in the Crucible. The challenger may use any equipment they can carry. The fight ends when one participant cannot continue." The laughter had stopped. This was real. The most powerful female in the galaxy was offering herself as a prize in a contest that would certainly mean death for anyone who tried. Marcus stood up. He had no plan. The action came from somewhere deeper than thought. Around him, other delegates turned to stare in amazement. A few made sounds that might have been laughter or pity. "I accept the challenge," Marcus said. His voice sounded small in the vast hall. Vex Hara's crystalline features turned toward him. For a moment, her light patterns shifted to colors he had never seen before. "A human," she said. "How interesting. What is your name, Challenger?" "Captain Marcus Chen, of the Terran Exploration Corps." "Very well, Captain Chen. You have 72 hours to prepare. The combat will take place in 3 days. The hall erupted in noise as delegates began talking at once. Some pointed at Marcus and laughed. Others placed bets against him. The odds started at 1,000 to 1, and quickly grew worse. Marcus felt a hand on his shoulder. Ambassador Thrix looked worried. "Captain, what have you done?" Thrix asked. "Korthak has killed hundreds of challengers. Even the greatest warriors of the galaxy fear him." "I know," Marcus said. "But my people need this alliance. Our colonies are struggling. Without help, they might not survive. There must be another way," Thrix said. "This is suicide." Marcus looked across the hall at Vex Hera. She was watching him with what might have been curiosity. Their eyes met for a moment before she turned away. "Maybe," Marcus said. "But sometimes you have to take impossible risks for the things that matter." Korthak stepped forward then. When he spoke, his voice sounded like grinding metal. "Human," the champion said. "I will make your death quick. You show courage, even if it is foolish courage." "Thanks," Marcus replied. "That's very kind of you." As the ceremony ended and delegates began to leave, Marcus remained in his seat. 3 days to figure out how to beat something that could not be beaten. 3 days to save his people, or die trying. He thought about his daughter Sarah, back on Colony World 7. She had been so proud when he left for the summit. He had promised to bring back hope. Now he had to find a way to keep that promise. Marcus spent the first night reading everything he could find about Korthak the Rendered. The station's databanks held records of every fight the champion had ever had. The details made for grim reading. Korthak could run faster than a racing speeder. His forearms could punch through reinforced steel. His hide could stop plasma bolts that would cut through starship armor. Worst of all, he was smart. The Void Clans had given him enhanced tactical awareness along with his physical gifts. "This is hopeless," Marcus muttered, pushing away from the computer terminal. He was in his assigned quarters, a small but comfortable room near the outer ring of the station. Through the window, he could see stars that looked cold and distant. Somewhere among them was Earth, and the struggling colonies that depended on him. A soft chime announced a visitor. Marcus opened the door, expecting Ambassador Thrix. Instead, he found himself face to face with Empress Vex Hera. She stood alone in the corridor, without guards or servants. Up close, her crystalline beauty was even more striking. Light patterns moved through her transparent skin like slow lightning. "Your Majesty," Marcus said, not sure if he should bow or salute. "May I enter, Captain Chen?" Marcus stepped aside. Vex Hara glided into the room, her feet not quite touching the floor. She moved to the window and stood looking out at the stars. "You study my champion's victories," she observed, glancing at his computer screen. "A logical approach." End quote. "Not that it's helping much," Marcus admitted. "Tell me, Captain, why did you really accept my challenge?" Marcus considered lying, but something in her alien features suggested she would know. "My people need help. The colonies are failing. Pirates attack our supply ships. We don't have the technology or the numbers to defend ourselves properly. And you believe an alliance with the Zephyrian Empire would solve these problems?" "It would give us a chance," Marcus said. "Right now, we don't have one." Vex Hera turned from the window. "I will tell you something that I have not shared with my own advisors. My challenge was not made on impulse." "What do you mean?" "I have been studying your species for some time, Captain. Human military records are fascinating reading. Your people have a talent for achieving victory when victory should be impossible." Marcus frowned. "We've had our share of defeats too." "Yes, but consider your patterns. At Thermopylae, 300 Spartans held off an army of thousands. During your Second World War, Britain stood alone against overwhelming odds and refused to surrender. In the Battle of Mirbat, 9 soldiers defeated 250 attackers. Those are just history lessons, Marcus said. Are they? Vex Hera's light patterns shifted to deep blue. Your species has survived ice ages, plagues, and wars that should have destroyed you. You have never possessed the strongest bodies or the fastest minds. Yet you continue to thrive. There is something in human nature that my people lack, which is the ability to keep fighting when logic says you should quit. Marcus sat down heavily in a chair. So this whole challenge is some kind of test? In part, yes. But not only for you. Vex Hera moved closer. My empire faces a threat that our traditional methods cannot handle. In the Outer Rim, ancient machines are awakening. We call them the Devourers. They convert entire star systems into raw materials for their expansion. Machines? Like artificial intelligence? Far worse. These entities are older than most species in the galaxy. They think in ways that organic minds cannot predict. Our fleets have fought them 3 times. Each battle was a disaster. Marcus began to understand. You need allies who think differently. I need allies who refuse to think logically when logic leads to defeat, Vex Hera said. Humans have shown this trait repeatedly throughout your history. But first I have to survive Korthak. Yes, and I confess, Captain, that despite my research into human capabilities, I cannot see how you will accomplish this. After the Empress left, Marcus felt more determined but no less worried. He spent the next day studying human military history instead of alien combat records. He read about David and Goliath, about guerrilla warfare, about every time someone weak had beaten someone strong through cleverness instead of strength. On the second day, he made a list of supplies he would need. The requests surprised everyone who saw them. Duct tape? Ambassador Thrix asked, looking at the list. Ball bearings? What manner of weapons are these? Not weapons, Marcus said. Tools. He also requested basic chemicals for making small explosives, a solar panel array, and several other items that seemed to have nothing to do with combat. The strangest request was for a harmonica. Captain, said Delegate Corv, who had been helping him gather supplies. Perhaps you should reconsider this challenge. There is no shame in withdrawing. Quote, Yes, there is, Marcus replied. At least for a human. On the 3rd morning, Marcus stood in the preparation chamber next to the crucible. The arena itself was a massive sphere that could generate any environment imaginable. Through the transparent walls, he could see thousands of spectators taking their seats. Korthak emerged from the opposite preparation chamber. The champion moved with casual confidence, his 4 arms hanging loosely at his sides. He wore no armor and carried no weapons. His own body was weapon and armor enough. Human, Korthak said as they stood at the entrance to the arena. It is not too late to withdraw. I respect your courage. But courage alone cannot defeat me. Marcus adjusted the straps on his equipment pack. It contained all the items he had requested, plus his sidearm and a combat knife. Against Korthak's enhanced physiology, conventional weapons would be nearly useless. You're right, Marcus said. Courage alone won't be enough. Then why do you persist in this folly? Marcus looked up at the alien warrior. Because sometimes impossible is just another word for difficult. The arena doors opened with a sound like thunder. Beyond lay whatever environment the Crucible had chosen for their first test. After you, Marcus said politely. Korthak made a sound that might have been laughter. I begin to see why the Empress finds humans interesting. They stepped into the arena together. The crowd fell silent as the doors sealed behind them. Above them, Vex Hera watched from the royal box. Her crystalline features showed no emotion, but her light patterns pulsed rapidly. She was nervous. Marcus realized. The Great Empress was actually nervous about the outcome. That thought gave him more confidence than all his preparations combined. The Crucible activated, and the real test began. The arena walls dissolved around them, replaced by the cold emptiness of space. Asteroids floated in the darkness, connected by metal bridges and platforms. Artificial gravity created pockets where up and down had meaning, but between them lay zones where a fighter could tumble helplessly if they made a mistake. Korthak immediately launched himself toward the nearest platform with inhuman grace. His bioengineered muscles propelled him through the zero gravity, like he had been born for it. Energy weapons materialized in his four hands, glowing with deadly power. Marcus moved more carefully, using handholds to pull himself along a bridge toward a different platform. He was not trying to match Korthak's spectacular display. Instead, he opened his equipment pack and began pulling out ball bearings. The first energy blast scorched the metal near Marcus's head. Korthak was testing his range, getting a feel for how the human moved. The second shot was more precise, forcing Marcus to dive behind a jutting piece of asteroid. "This environment favors me, human," Korthak called out. "I can reach any platform faster than you can run." "You're probably right," Marcus replied, continuing to scatter ball bearings around the platform where he crouched. "Good thing I'm not planning to run." Korthak launched himself across the gap between asteroids, moving like a missile with four arms. He landed on Marcus's platform with enough force to crack the metal surface. But Marcus was no longer there. He had pushed off just as Korthak arrived, using one of the champion's own energy blasts to mask his movement. More importantly, Korthak landed among the scattered ball bearings. In normal gravity, the small metal spheres would have been a minor annoyance. But in the mixed gravity fields of the asteroid arena, they became something else entirely. Korthak's powerful landing sent dozens of ball bearings flying in unpredictable directions. They bounced between gravity zones, creating a swirling cloud of metal projectiles. Korthak snarled and tried to track Marcus, but the ball bearings kept striking his weapons, throwing off his aim. The champion was fast enough to dodge individual projectiles, but there were too many moving in too many directions. "Clever," Korthak admitted, "but tricks will not save you long." The champion adapted quickly, using his four arms to create defensive patterns that deflected most of the ball bearings. He began moving more carefully, each step calculated to avoid creating more chaos. Marcus had expected this. While Korthak focused on the ball bearings, Marcus used the distraction to place small explosive charges on key structural points. Nothing dramatic, just enough to change how the arena worked. The first explosion shifted an asteroid's rotation. The second altered the gravity field around a platform. The third sent a metal bridge spinning slowly through space. Now Korthak faced a new problem. The arena environment was no longer stable. Platforms that had been safe landing spots now moved unpredictably. Gravity fields fluctuated, making his perfect jumps less certain. "You changed the battlefield instead of mastering it," Korthak observed. "Chaotic, but effective. Humans are good at chaos," Marcus replied, triggering another small charge. The arena shimmered and changed. The asteroids faded away, replaced by a dense jungle filled with massive trees and hanging vines. The air grew thick and humid. Strange sounds echoed from the undergrowth. Korthak smiled, showing teeth designed for tearing. "This environment I know well. The hunt begins." The champion moved through the jungle like a force of nature. Vines parted before him. Branches that would support his weight bent but did not break. His enhanced senses tracked Marcus's movement through smell, sound, and heat signatures. Marcus did not try to hide completely. That would be impossible against Korthak's abilities. Instead, he moved with purpose, following paths he had planned during his 3 days of preparation. The first trap was simple. Marcus had used his time in the asteroid arena to study how the crucible worked. The arena recycled certain elements between environments. Metal from the space platforms became jungle floor minerals. Energy patterns became plant growth systems. Marcus had placed some of his remaining ball bearings in specific locations before the environment changed. Now, they had become seed pods in the alien jungle plants. When Korthak passed beneath them, Marcus triggered a small explosive. The champion looked up in time to see dozens of seed pods falling toward him, each one containing a metal ball bearing. He dodged most of them, but several struck his shoulders and head, not enough to cause real damage, but enough to show that the human was still thinking ahead. "You plant traps like a farmer plants crops," Korthak said, his respect for his opponent growing. "Tell me, "Human, do your people always fight this way?" "We fight the way we have to," Marcus replied from somewhere in the canopy above. "Fair fights are for people who can afford them." The second trap was more complex. Marcus had been leading Korthak toward a grove of trees whose roots formed a natural maze. But he had done more than just choose the location. During the chase, he had been dropping small chemical compounds that reacted with the jungle's moisture. When Korthak reached the grove, the air suddenly filled with thick smoke. The champion's enhanced vision could penetrate normal darkness. But the chemical mixture created a fog that blocked even his abilities. "Coward!" Korthak roared, swinging his arms to clear the smoke. "Face me properly." "Why?" Marcus's voice came from somewhere in the fog. "This is working fine." Korthak charged toward the sound, but Marcus was no longer there. The human had used the smoke to change position again, moving to the next prepared trap. The third trap nearly worked perfectly. Marcus had found a section of jungle floor that was really a thin shell over a deep pit. Normally, the pit would have been filled with water or quicksand. But the arena's systems had not yet finished forming this hazard. When Korthak stepped on the weak ground, it collapsed. For a moment, the champion fell toward what should have been a significant drop, but Korthak was too experienced to be caught that easily. His 4 arms shot out, grabbing jungle vines and tree branches. He pulled himself back up to solid ground, angry but unharmed. "Enough games," the champion snarled. Korthak stopped chasing Marcus through the jungle. Instead, he began destroying it. His energy weapons cut down trees. His fists smashed through undergrowth. In minutes, he had cleared a wide area around himself, eliminating most of Marcus's hiding places. Marcus found himself crouched behind one of the few remaining large trees, running out of options. The champion's approach was crude, but effective. Soon, there would be nowhere left to hide. The arena shimmered again. The jungle began to fade, replaced by something new. Marcus caught a glimpse of water and stone passages before the transformation completed. They were now in an underwater labyrinth, ancient stone corridors filled with strange blue light stretched in all directions. Schools of alien fish swam through the halls like living decorations. Korthak moved through the water as easily as he had moved through air and jungle. His bioengineered lungs could extract oxygen from liquid as well as gas. Marcus held his breath and began swimming as fast as he could. He was a good swimmer, but not superhuman. The water was slowing him down while barely affecting Korthak at all. "The human begins to tire," Korthak observed, speaking somehow despite being underwater. "Soon, this contest will end." Marcus reached into his equipment pack and pulled out the solar panel array he had requested. The alien observers had probably wondered why he wanted it. Now, as he unfolded the panels in the blue light of the underwater maze, the reason became clear. The panels began to generate electricity from the labyrinth's strange illumination. Marcus had prepared for this by studying the crucible's environmental patterns. Many of its underwater settings used bioluminescent lighting that could be converted to power. He connected the panels to a device he had built from spare electronic components. It was crude, but it worked. The device sent electrical pulses through the water in specific patterns. The effect was immediate. The alien fish that had been swimming peacefully through the corridors suddenly became aggressive. Their bodies generated natural electrical fields, and Marcus's device was calling to those fields, directing them. Korthak found himself surrounded by dozens of electric eels and shockfish, all convinced that he was a threat to be attacked. His bioengineered hide protected him from serious injury, but the constant electrical jolts disrupted his enhanced senses and slowed his movements. "You turn the environment itself into a weapon," Korthak said, swatting at the aggressive sea life. "I have never faced an opponent like you." "Good," Marcus replied, swimming away through the confusion. "That means this might actually work." But even as he spoke, Marcus knew that his tricks were running out. Each environment change gave him a brief advantage, but Korthak adapted quickly. The champion was learning to expect the unexpected. Soon, Marcus would have to face him directly. And when that happened, all the cleverness in the galaxy might not be enough to save him. The underwater labyrinth dissolved around them like melting ice. For a moment, Marcus and Korthak floated in empty space as the arena's systems prepared the next environment. Then walls of polished silver materialized, creating an endless maze of mirrors. Marcus's breath caught in his throat. This was the test he had feared most during his research. The mirror maze of memory was designed to break challengers mentally rather than physically. The mirrors showed not just reflections, but fears, regrets, and traumatic memories made real. "Ah," Korthak said, his forearms relaxing slightly. "Now the true test begins." The champion moved confidently into the maze. The mirrors showed him scenes of his greatest victories. Defeated opponents, conquered worlds, the fear in his enemies' eyes. Each reflection fed his confidence and strength. Marcus hesitated at the maze entrance. He knew what he would see in these mirrors, and he was not sure he could face it. But he had come too far to turn back now. The first mirror he passed showed his daughter Sarah waving goodbye as he left for the summit. She had been so proud, so confident that her father would succeed. The reflection seemed to mock him with its innocence. The second mirror was worse. It showed Colony World 7, as he had seen it in the intelligence reports. Failing crops, empty streets, families packing their few belongings to leave for safer systems. The colony was dying, and Earth could not send enough help. "The mirrors show you failure," Korthak's voice echoed through the maze. "They show you weakness. This is why most challengers break here." Marcus forced himself to keep moving deeper into the maze. Each step brought new reflections, new reminders of everything he could lose. He saw his ex-wife Maria, who had left him because he spent too much time on military missions and not enough time at home. He saw the soldiers who had died under his command during the Proxima campaign. He saw every mistake he had ever made, magnified and displayed in perfect clarity. But then something strange happened. The mirrors began showing him other things too. He saw the Battle of Marathon, where outnumbered Greek soldiers ran 26 miles to carry news of victory home. He saw the Warsaw Ghetto uprising, where people with no hope chose to fight anyway. He saw the crew of Apollo 13, refusing to give up when their spacecraft was crippled millions of miles from Earth. "What is this?" Korthak's voice had changed. The confidence was gone, replaced by confusion. Marcus understood what was happening. The maze was designed to break alien minds by showing them personal failures. But human minds worked differently. Humans had learned to find strength in the stories of others who had faced impossible odds. The mirrors continued to shift, showing him scene after scene of human determination. David facing Goliath. Ernest Shackleton leading his men to safety across Antarctic ice. Rosa Parks, refusing to give up her seat on a bus. Each image reminded Marcus that he was not alone in this fight. He carried with him the accumulated courage of his entire species. He reached into his equipment pack and pulled out the harmonica. The small instrument looked ridiculous in the context of Mortal Kombat. But Marcus had not brought it as a weapon in any conventional sense. He had brought it as something that no alien mind could predict or understand. He began to play. The melody was simple, almost primitive compared to the sophisticated music that most galactic species created. It was Amazing Grace. A song that had comforted humans through wars, disasters, and personal tragedies for centuries. The effect on Korthak was immediate and devastating. The champion's enhanced hearing, designed to detect the slightest sound of approaching enemies, could not filter out the haunting notes. More importantly, his bioengineered mind could not categorize the music or predict what it meant. Korthak had been created to be the perfect warrior. Every aspect of his being was optimized for combat. But perfection, Marcus realized, was also a weakness. Perfect systems could not adapt to things they were not designed to handle. The harmonica continued to wail through the mirror maze. The sound was human in a way that transcended explanation. It carried centuries of suffering and hope, of people who had endured because they had something to endure for. "Stop," Korthak commanded. "This is not combat. This is..." "What is this?" This is human," Marcus replied, continuing to play. The mirrors around Korthak began to change. Instead of showing his victories, They now reflected something he had never experienced before: doubt. For 3 centuries, Korthak had known exactly what he was. He was the rendered one, the perfect killer, the champion who could not be defeated. But now, for the first time, he wondered if perfection might not be enough. The reflections showed him every opponent he had ever faced, but now he saw them differently. They had not been cowards or weaklings. They had been beings fighting for things they believed in, just as this human fought now. "You are making me see things," Korthak said. His voice shook slightly. "This is some form of mental attack." "No," Marcus said, lowering the harmonica. "This is just music. You're doing the rest to yourself." The truth of those words hit Korthak like a physical blow. The human was not using advanced technology or alien powers. He was simply being human. And somehow, that was enough to shake the foundations of everything Korthak believed about himself. Marcus continued moving through the maze, following paths that seemed to open before him. The mirrors now showed him not just human heroes, but human moments. A mother singing to her child, friends laughing together, strangers helping each other during disasters. "Why do you fight?" Korthak asked from somewhere in the maze. "Your people are weak, your technology primitive. Why do you not simply surrender to superior forces?" Marcus thought about the question as he navigated the silver corridors. It was something he had never really considered before. "Because surrendering is what you do when you have nothing left to lose," he said finally. "We always have something left to lose, even when defeat is certain, especially then." Marcus reached the center of the maze, where a final mirror waited. This one showed him not the past, but possible futures. In one reflection, he saw Colony World 7 thriving under Zephyrian protection. In another, he saw himself dead on the arena floor while his daughter learned of his failure. But the most important reflection showed him something else. Korthak, standing alone in a different part of the maze, staring at a mirror that showed him what he might become if he stopped being just a weapon and started being a person. The maze shows us choices, Marcus realized. Not just memories, choices. Korthak emerged from another corridor, moving slowly. The champion's perfect confidence was gone. In its place was something that looked almost like curiosity. "Human," Korthak said. "I begin to understand why the Empress finds your species interesting. Because we're good entertainment? No. Because you fight for reasons that make no logical sense. And somehow, that gives you strength that logic cannot provide." The mirrors began to fade around them. The maze was ending, which meant they were approaching the final environment. Marcus felt his heart racing. Everything that had come before was preparation. The last test would be simple, direct, and possibly fatal. "Whatever comes next," Korthak said, "know that you have already achieved something remarkable. You have made me doubt myself. In 3 centuries, no opponent has done that." "Is doubt a bad thing?" Marcus asked. Korthak considered this. For a weapon, yes. For a person, perhaps not. The arena shimmered one final time, preparing to reveal the environment where their contest would end. The mirrors faded away, leaving Marcus and Korthak standing on a simple circular platform. The floor was metal, smooth and unmarked. The walls were transparent, giving the watching crowd a perfect view. There was nowhere to run, no tricks to employ, no environmental advantages to exploit. This was what Marcus had dreaded from the beginning. Pure combat. The bioengineered perfect warrior against a human being who was remarkable only for his refusal to quit. "The final test," Korthak said. He rolled his 4 shoulders, each movement displaying muscles that could crush steel. "Here, there can be no tricks or clever tactics, only strength against strength." Marcus checked his equipment one last time. His sidearm held 6 shots. His combat knife was sharp, but small. Against Korthak's enhanced physiology, these weapons would be barely more effective than throwing pebbles. "I know," Marcus replied, "but humans have never been about fair fights." Above them, the crowd of galactic delegates watched in silence. Many had made bets against the human. Others simply wanted to witness the spectacle of David facing his Goliath. In the royal box, Vexahera leaned forward, her crystalline features unreadable. Korthak began to circle the platform, moving with the fluid grace of a predator. You have impressed me, human. In 3 centuries of combat, no opponent has forced me to think as you have, but thinking will not save you here. Maybe not, Marcus said, drawing his sidearm. But it might slow you down. The champion laughed, a sound like grinding stone. You will waste your ammunition on my hide, which can stop plasma fire. Then you will try your knife, which cannot penetrate my skin. Then you will use your hands, which are too weak to harm me. And then you will die. That does sound like a plan, Marcus agreed. Want to find out if it works? Korthak's patience ended. He launched himself across the platform with explosive speed, 4 arms reaching for the human who dared to challenge him. Marcus fired all 6 shots in rapid succession. He did not aim for Korthak's armored torso or protected head. Instead, he targeted the joints where bioengineered sections connected. The tiny gaps where even perfect design had to allow for movement. The shots did not penetrate deeply, but they found their marks. Korthak stumbled slightly, more from surprise than damage. In all his centuries of combat, no opponent had targeted those specific points, but the champion's momentum carried him forward, and his first strike should have ended the fight. His massive fist swung toward Marcus's head with enough force to shatter stone. Marcus did something that no trained warrior would have attempted. Instead of dodging or trying to block, he stepped forward into the attack. He accepted the crushing blow to his shoulder and ribs, but the movement took him inside Korthak's guard. Pain exploded through Marcus's body as bones cracked. But now he was close enough to use his knife. Not against Korthak's armored hide, but against the same joints he had targeted with his gun. The blade slipped between bioengineered plates, finding nerve clusters that even the Void Clan's perfect design could not fully protect. Korthak roared in pain and surprise, grabbing Marcus with 2 of his arms and hurling him across the platform. Marcus hit the wall hard and slid to the ground. His left arm hung useless, and blood ran from his mouth. But he pushed himself back to his feet, knife still gripped in his right hand. Impossible, Korthak said, staring at his own wounds. Green fluid leaked from the cuts Marcus had made. Those should not have penetrated. Those should not have penetrated. They barely did, Marcus admitted, spitting blood. But barely is enough. Korthak's tactical mind began to reassess the situation. The human was not trying to defeat him through superior strength or skill. Instead, he was accepting massive damage to inflict minor wounds, betting that persistence would overcome power. You fight like a cornered animal, the champion observed. I fight like a human, Marcus corrected. The second exchange was even more brutal. Korthak, now wary of the human's unpredictable tactics, tried to end the fight quickly. His forearms struck like pistons, each blow capable of killing most beings. Marcus could not dodge them all. The champion's fist caught him in the stomach, driving the air from his lungs and probably rupturing internal organs. Another strike hit his damaged shoulder, sending waves of agony through his nervous system. But again, Marcus used Korthak's aggression against him. As the champion pressed his attack, Marcus grabbed a piece of debris that had been knocked loose from the wall and drove it into one of the small wounds he had already created. Korthak screamed, a sound that had never emerged from his throat before. The pain was not just physical but psychological. For the first time in his existence, he was losing a fight. Why will you not stay down? Korthak demanded, backing away from the bloodied human. Marcus wiped crimson from his eyes and smiled with broken teeth. Because staying down is what you do when you're dead. And I'm not dead yet. The third exchange was hardly combat at all. It was desperation against determination, perfect bioengineering against stubborn human will. Korthak grabbed Marcus in all 4 arms, trying to crush the life out of him. The champion's strength was overwhelming. Marcus felt his ribs cracking, his breath being squeezed from his lungs. But in that crushing embrace, Marcus found himself positioned exactly where he needed to be. He still had his teeth. What followed was not elegant or honorable. Marcus bit down on the nerve cluster he had been targeting with his knife. using his human canine teeth to tear through bioengineered flesh. The taste was horrible, but he held on like a wild animal, refusing to let go even as Korthak tried to shake him off. The champion's perfect nervous system, designed to enhance his combat abilities, became a liability. The nerve cluster Marcus was attacking controlled balance and spatial awareness. As it was damaged, Korthak began to stumble and fall. They hit the platform together, Marcus still hanging onto his opponent with teeth and damaged hands. The crowd watched in stunned silence as the greatest warrior in the galaxy was brought down by what could only be described as a human being's refusal to acknowledge reality. Korthak tried to rise, but his enhanced systems were failing. The minor wounds Marcus had inflicted had disrupted critical connections. The champion, who had never known defeat, lay on his back, staring up at the transparent dome above. Marcus pushed himself to his knees beside his fallen opponent. Every movement sent fresh waves of pain through his broken body, but he was still moving. "You have won," Korthak said quietly. "I do not understand how, but you have won." Marcus collapsed beside him, no longer able to maintain even a kneeling position. "Neither do I," he admitted. But winning was never really the point. Then what was the point? Not quitting. There's a difference. Above them, Vex Hera rose from her seat in the royal box. Her voice carried clearly to every corner of the arena. "The human is victorious," she announced. "Captain Marcus Chen has defeated my champion in fair combat." The crowd erupted in noise. Some cheered, others expressed disbelief. Many simply sat in stunned silence, trying to process what they had witnessed. Vex Hera descended to the arena floor, her crystalline form gliding gracefully through the air. She knelt beside Marcus, her alien features showing something that might have been concern. "You are badly injured," she observed. "I'll live," Marcus said, though he was not entirely certain of that. "The question is, will you honor your agreement?" "I will," Vex Hera replied, "but perhaps not in the way you expect." She helped him sit up, her touch surprisingly gentle. "I offered myself as prize to whoever could defeat my champion. You have done so, but I would prefer to be claimed as an equal partner rather than a trophy." Marcus looked into her alien eyes, seeing intelligence that dwarfed his own, but also something else. "Respect. Partners then," he said, extending his uninjured hand. "Against whatever's coming." Vex Hera took his hand in her crystalline fingers. "The Devourers will not expect an alliance between logic and stubborn illogic. This may give us the advantage we need." As medical teams rushed onto the platform to treat Marcus's injuries, he allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. He had achieved the impossible, not through strength or cleverness, but through the simple human refusal to accept defeat. Korthak, being helped to his feet by his own medical team, approached them one last time. "Human," the champion said, "you have taught me something important today." "What's that?" "That perfection is not the same as strength. Perhaps it is time I learned to be more than just a weapon." As Marcus was carried from the arena, he caught a final glimpse of the crowd. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy had watched a human achieve the impossible through sheer determination. Maybe, he thought, this was how legends began, with someone too stubborn to know when they were beaten. In the royal box, delegates were already discussing the implications of what they had witnessed. The human species had proven themselves worthy of respect and alliance. More importantly, they had shown that sometimes the most powerful weapon in the galaxy was simply refusing to give up, and in the outer rim, ancient machines continued their slow awakening, unaware that they would soon face an alliance between perfect logic and imperfect determination. It was a combination that had never existed before in the galaxy's long history. For the first time in eons, the impossible had become merely difficult, and for humans, that was all the advantage they had ever needed.